We're going to do a pre-start inspection and talk about preventative maintenance on this here Caterpillar bulldozer D5K2. You want to look in front of it, behind it, and above it as you walk up. Make sure there's no obstructions or obstacles, anything in the way of you moving it. As you approach, you want to check out your windows, everything that you can see. Make sure they're free and clean of debris, no cracks or damage. They're properly secured to the vehicle. Check out your headlights. Make sure they're properly mounted and secured, not cracked or damaged. Do an overall look. Make sure there's no obvious damage as you walk up to it. As we approach here, we're going to check out the track system. Right here we have our grousers that are attached to our shoes that are bolted with this hardware to the chain assembly. We're going to look at the grousers in the shoes. Make sure they're not bent, broken, cracked, damaged in any way. Make sure it's not missing any hardware going on the chain all the way around. Make sure there's no missing links. We want to make sure it's properly aligned on our idler is in the front, our rollers, and our sprocket on the rear. We're looking at the condition of our idlers and our rollers, making sure they're smooth, properly secured and mounted with the hardware, no chunks or debris. We want to look at our final drive and our sprocket. The sprocket is mounted to the final drive. All the hardware is in place. The sprocket does not have worn or dull or chunks missing out of the teeth. On the final drive, the hardware is all in place, holding the duo cone seals. It's not leaking. The plugs are tight, no cracks or damage on that. Want to look at the bottom rollers as well and do an overall look of the undercarriage itself. No cracks or damage, and there's no debris wrapped up in the tracks. Want to look at our steps, make sure they're free and clean of debris, along with the grab rails around this machine. Make sure they're properly secured, mounted, not cracked or damaged. Want to look at our cylinders. I'm going to look at all the cylinders the same way as I walk around and check out all my pins in the same way. We're going to check out our hydraulic cylinder here. It's a lift cylinder. Make sure it's properly mounted by the pins. Hardware's in place. The pins are properly greased. The cylinder is not cracked or damaged. It's not leaking from the seal. And on this piston or ram, there's no damage, no cracks, scoring, anything that could affect the operation of this cylinder. Look at all our hoses. Make sure they're connected at both ends, tight and secure. No obvious damage, no abrasions, bulges, cuts, dry rot. We're going to look at all the hoses the same way as we walk around this machine and all the cylinders. Right in between the track and the frame here, we have a push arm mount. Check the push arm mount, make sure the pin is in place securely, properly greased. There's no damage, no cracks to the push arm mount itself. Manufactured welds. Look at the overall push arm itself. The horseshoe going around the front is the push arm itself. Make sure it's not cracked or damaged. Got proper clearance around it. Look at our trunnion. The connection of the blade at the bottom of the push, making sure it's got proper hardware, no damage done to it. Look at this angle cylinder, the same way I did the lift cylinder. Look at the triangle part on top of the push arm, the top of the blade pitch mount. It's not cracked, not damaged, no illegal unapproved welds. The pitch is in good condition, the mounting hardware. I'm going to look at my blade, the top, the back, the side, and the front. Make sure there's no cracks or damage. It's good operating condition. The side of the blade here is the mold board. I would inspect that, make sure there's manufactured welds, not cracked or damaged. I would look at the front of my blade and look at the cutting edge. It's a 4-piece cutting edge, making sure it's not missing any hardware. No cracks or damage. It's in good operating condition. At the front of your machine, you want to look at your radiator. Making sure the radiator is free and clean of debris. No bent fins, no damage, not leaking. The radiator guard is in place and intact. As I'm walking around the machine, I'm doing an overall examination of the overall structure itself. Any obvious damage or anything like that. On this side, I would check out the same as I did the other side. All the components. I have a tilt cylinder here. I have my angle cylinder here. My push arm, all the corresponding hoses, and my lift cylinder. and the push arm mount on this side, steps and grab rails, and my entire track assembly. I would inspect everything on this side just like I did the other side. Looking at my windows and my glass and my lights. Coming to this compartment here, my battery compartment. Make sure the batteries are properly secured, in place, not cracked. No bulging coming out of the batteries, they're not leaking. I'll check the cable connections, make sure there's no corrosion. If there was, I would take it off and clean it up. Checking all the wiring, making sure the key is in the on position. Checking out my hydraulic filter, making sure it's tight and secure, not leaking. Then we have a little modem back here. Just want to make sure the modem is intact and in place. On the back of my machine, I'm looking up at the top at the lights again, checking out the windows for the same condition I did the first time. Looking at my hydraulic cap, making sure it's tight and secured. My fuel cap is the same way, and my def cap is the same way. Right here, I'm going to inspect my backup camera, no obvious damage. My hydraulic fluid is in range. I'm going to look at my tow point, make sure it's properly secured by the hardware, working properly. Look underneath the machine, making sure there's no leaking or puddles or debris wrapped up in the tracks or anything of that nature. Coming back around to this compartment right here, I have my def tank, making sure it's properly secured, not leaking. I have my washer fluid, making sure the cap's on tight and it's got proper fluid in there, and my air cleaner for my AC. All the hoses and wiring and free and clean of debris, no brazen bulges or cuts on the hoses and stuff, tears on the wires. Go to my engine compartment. Look at my engine compartment up here in the top left. I have a coolant reservoir. I would reach my hand through there and open up the lid on top to check the cap on the coolant reservoir, make sure it's tight and secure. Coolant reservoir is full and in a proper level. I'm looking at my fan blade and my fan shroud, making sure they're intact, not missing any hardware, not damaged in any way. I'm looking at my fan belt, making sure there's no more than 3/4 of an inch of play if I pull it or push it. Make sure it's properly lined, no tears, cracks, or frays. Looking at the overall engine compartment itself, all the hoses, piping, and tubing, making sure they're connected at both ends, no cuts, no leaks, no damage. Look at my air filter, make sure the air filter and the dust conduiter valve is clean. If the dust conduiter valve was dirty, I would take the air filter out and blow it out or knock it on a clean, smooth surface. Looking at my exhaust, making sure there's no signs of leaks, which soot would indicate leaks. Checking out my oil fill cap, making sure it's tight and secure. My oil dipstick, I would pull it out and check the proper level. Pull it out, wipe it off, stick it back in, pull it back out, hold it horizontal and check the level. My replacement element filter, my fuel filter, and my fuel water separator are all tight and secure, not damaged or leaking. My oil filter is down at the bottom, I can't really see that. Now we're going to climb inside and do the startup procedures. The inside of the machine is free and clean of debris. As I walk in here, checking out my ROPS, making sure they're in good condition, no obvious damage done to that, no missing hardware protecting it. As I climb in here, I want to go ahead and check my seat belt and my seat for proper adjustment. Making sure the seat belt works, locks and unlocks, not torn or frayed. My seat's adjusted where I can hit my pedals. Check out your windows from the inside, make sure they're free and clean of debris. Check out your mirror, make sure it's properly adjusted. Again, do an overall look at your ROPS and stuff. We turn the key forward. We verify we're in neutral. The left joystick is your FNR switch. The screen will tell you you're in neutral, so you're good. Parking brake is on. Check out all the gauges as we crank this machine up. Looking for the oil pressure light, make sure it goes off within 10 seconds. Oil pressure light never came on, so we're safe. Now we want to go ahead and check our hydraulic lock. Over on this side we have our hydraulic lock right here. We have our parking brake right here. We have our engine throttle right here. We rev the engine throttle up 1 notch. This is our blade control on the right hand side. We take our foot off the pedal. It lifts the engine speeds up. We move the blade does not move. We turn our hydraulics on by pressing this button. Now we lift the blade up by pulling the joystick back. And we check all the functions of the machine. This little wheel will angle the blade. Moving it to the left and right will tilt it. The little yellow button will shake it. We leave the blade off the ground. Now we check our parking brake. Parking brake is on. We grab the left joystick. We decelerate the machine, put it in forward. We let off the decelerator. Parking brake works. We put it in reverse, do the same thing. Backup alarm is working properly. Our horn is on the left joystick. Our horn works properly. Now we disengage our parking brake by that red button on our right hand side, and we go ahead and check forward and backward movement. Check your steering left and right. Back up. Good. Lower the blade back down. Turn your parking brake on. Hydraulic lock on. Idle the machine down. Up top we have our wipers. And check those out. Make sure they all work properly. Down to the right we have our light switch. We turn those lights on. Now we get out and we do an overall look and let it warm up for 5 minutes. Walk around the entire machine. Not touching anything because it's under pressure. We're just doing an overall look. Top to bottom all the way around.